See, you don't quit it, and you don't quit in sports. You retire. You don't get to quit. It's not an option. See, someone told me that a long time ago. That ain't even an option. And the person told me that, he ain't here anymore. He died. This is what's great about sports. This is what the greatest thing about sports is. You play to win the game. Hello? You play to win the game. You don't play to just play it. That's the great thing about sports. You play to win. And I don't care if you don't have any wins. You go play to win. When you start telling me it doesn't matter, then retire. Get out.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another great episode of the Randall Handles Football Podcast. I am your host, Randall Tevis. We are entering Week 11 of the NFL season, and again, for the 11th time this year, we have some terrific matchups on the slate of games. But before we get into those games in Week 11, let's go back to my Week 10 predictions. In Week 10, I correctly predicted 8 games and incorrectly chose 6 games, for a record of 8-6, which is again better than 500, which is pretty much where I want to be. On Thursday night, I had picked the Tennessee Titans to beat the Colts, and that did not happen. I picked the Houston Texans to beat the Cleveland Browns, which didn't happen. It wasn't that far off of a game. I think it was like either a 3-point win for Cleveland or a 7-point win for Cleveland. But it wasn't a blowout by any stretch. I picked Buffalo to beat Arizona, and of course it took the fantastic play by the fantastic Hail Murray, as they're calling it, for the Arizona Cardinals to beat the Buffalo Bills. So again, I wasn't too far off on that pick either. I picked the Baltimore Ravens to beat the New England Patriots, the Chicago Bears to beat the Minnesota Vikings on Monday Night Football, and I picked the Los Angeles Chargers to beat the Miami Dolphins. Congratulations, Kirk Cousins. You finally got your first Monday Night Football victory. Again, congratulations to you. It only took about 8 seasons in the NFL to get your first Monday Night Football win. So good job. My lock of the week last week was the Baltimore Ravens, and so for the first time all season, I incorrectly chose the lock of the week. I'm giving myself one strike, and hopefully I don't mess up that lock of the week again for the rest of the season. I think this week is going to be another safe bet, but again, it's the National Football League, so you never know, right? My upset of the week was the New York Giants beating the Philadelphia Eagles, and that did happen. The New York Giants pretty much owned that game against the Eagles. There wasn't really much of a chance for the Eagles like the entire game, so I did pick that upset of the week correctly. Now moving into Week 11, like I said, we have some terrific games, and we also have some makeup games due to the COVID-19 outbreak. From Week 6, the New York Jets and the Los Angeles Chargers were supposed to play, but that game was canceled. Instead, the Jets played the Miami Dolphins, and the Los Angeles Chargers had their bye week. Also in Week 6, the Miami Dolphins were supposed to play the Denver Broncos, but that game too was canceled while, again, the Miami Dolphins played the Jets, and Denver played the New England Patriots. So those 2 games will be made up this week in Week 11. So it just adds to some of the fun that we get in Week 11. Starting off with our Thursday night matchup, it sees a battle of 2 of the best teams in the NFC conference and the 2 best teams in the NFC West division. Sorry, Rams, not going to put you guys there yet. Anyways, we have the Arizona Cardinals traveling to Seattle to take on the Seahawks. Listen, I know that Arizona's been a very exciting team this entire year. Like I said, last week they had that Hail Murray from Kyler Murray to DeAndre Hopkins that set the world on fire. I get that, but I still am not ready to say that the Cardinals are the team to beat in the NFC West, let alone the entire NFC. So I'm going to pick the Seattle Seahawks here to beat the Arizona Cardinals and really take control of this division. I know that Russell Wilson has not been his MVP self these last couple of weeks, but expect that to turn around here in this game against the Cardinals. Going into our Sunday matchups, we have the Cincinnati Bengals taking on the Washington football team. Ever since Alex Smith took over, he started last week in Week 10, but in Week 9 he came in for some mop-up duty. The Washington football team has looked like a completely different team. And I said at the moment that they decided that Kyle Allen was going to be their starting quarterback, that they should be starting Alex Smith to give themselves the best chance at winning. Again, if you look at it, they have 2 wins on the entire season. They're only 1 win away from being tied for first in their division for the division lead. So you got to go out there and try to win football games. And I think Alex Smith does give them the best chance at winning games. And they have been competitive since he took over at quarterback. On the other side, the Cincinnati Bengals, Joe Burrow did not have a good game last week against the Pittsburgh Steelers. I know a lot of people were picking Joe Burrow and the Bengals to be the ones to upset the Pittsburgh Steelers and give them their first loss of the season, but that didn't happen. And instead, it was a blowout win for the Pittsburgh Steelers. In this game in Week 11, I'm going to pick the Washington football team to get their 3rd win of the season and beat the Cincinnati Bengals. The 3rd game on this list is going to be my upset of the week as the Atlanta Falcons travel to New Orleans to take the Saints. Like I said, I'm picking the Atlanta Falcons to win this game, and 99% of it is because Drew Brees is not going to be playing. Now, if you saw the play last week where Drew Brees got injured against the San Francisco 49ers, they ended up calling a roughing the passer penalty on that play, which, if you ask me, was complete BS. It was a clean hit. It was a clean sack. And it's just one of those times where the quarterbacks, the beloved, darling quarterbacks of the NFL, get the calls always on their side. Whatever, I'm past that. The more important thing was Drew Brees did get banged up. They said that he has several broken ribs and a punctured lung, which sounds pretty dangerous. In comes Jameis Winston last week against the 49ers, and he did absolutely nothing the entire time he was out there. And that was against a banged-up 49ers defense. Going up against an Atlanta Falcons defense, I know they're not much better, but there's no way I'm going to pick Jameis Winston to win this game against the Falcons. Against the Atlanta Falcons, that still have Matt Ryan, Todd Gurley, Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley, so on and so forth. Listen, I'm picking the Falcons to win this game. They had their bye week last week, so they've had an extra week to prepare. I got the Falcons winning this game. That's my upset of the week. Our next matchup sees the Pittsburgh Steelers traveling to Jacksonville to take on the Jaguars. Mike Tomlin went on the record to say that he has tremendous respect for the Jaguars and that there's not playing a D2 team. No, this is a National Football League team. This is a professional team. They're not taking it lightly. Well, I kind of believe him. I kind of don't. Listen, the Jacksonville Jaguars are a joke this year. Okay, they're not even starting Gardner Minshew. There's not much positive around Jacksonville. I'm sure they're probably looking ahead to their Thursday night matchup next week on Thanksgiving against the Baltimore Ravens. But either way, I'm not going to pick the Steelers to lose to the Jaguars. Come on, that'd be ridiculous. Just like I wasn't going to pick the Jaguars last week to beat the Packers. I'm picking Pittsburgh here to win against Jacksonville and to remain undefeated on the season. The next matchup is one that was actually flexed into the afternoon games, as it is one of the games of the week. We have the Green Bay Packers traveling to Indianapolis to take on the Colts. Like I said, we have a battle of 2 teams that are fighting at the top of their division. I believe both of those teams are at the top of their division right now. After Indianapolis beat the Tennessee Titans on Thursday Night Football last week. That was a very convincing win. That Indianapolis Colts team is hot, and of course the Packers team is hot as well. I'm going to pick the Packers to beat the Colts, even in Indianapolis. I just think that Green Bay's offense is a lot more explosive than the Colts' offense is, and I don't think the Colts' defense is going to be able to contain Aaron Rodgers and the Packers' offense. So I'm picking the Packers to beat the Colts. The next matchup is the New England Patriots taking on the Houston Texans. Houston has been an absolute dumpster fire this entire year. Again, it just goes all the way back to the offseason when the Texans decided to trade away the number 1 wide receiver in the entire NFL, DeAndre Hopkins, for pretty much nothing. Okay, The New England Patriots surprised a lot of people last week and got a win against the Baltimore Ravens. I know that game was in the downpour rain. It was an absolute monsoon that entire game. But hey, that's just the kind of game that New England thrives in. Either way, I have the Patriots beating the Houston Texans here. I think the Patriots are still a little bit better than what people give them credit for, and the Texans are a lot worse than people give them credit for. So I'm going to pick the Patriots to win this game and to beat the Texans. The next matchup is a battle of the NFC East leaders and a team that is right there in the chase for the wild card in the AFC. And that's the Philadelphia Eagles and the Cleveland Browns. Again, the Philadelphia Eagles last week really put up a laugher of a game against the New York Giants, and they ultimately lost that game. The Cleveland Browns did enough to win their game against the Houston Texans in a game where I think there was like 30-mile-an-hour gusts of wind or 40-mile-an-hour gusts of wind. So it was a real tough game. But anyways, Cleveland got the job done. Philadelphia didn't. I think the same thing is going to happen this week. I'm picking the Cleveland Browns to beat the Philadelphia Eagles. The next matchup sees the Detroit Lions taking on the Carolina Panthers in Carolina. It's the battle of the banged-up quarterbacks. I think I heard that Matt Stafford of the Detroit Lions partially tore his thumb, which sounds pretty damn painful if you ask me. But he's going to suck it up. He is going to be out there playing for his team. And at the end of the game last week for the Carolina Panthers against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Teddy Bridgewater was sacked from behind, and it was very scary. He ended up with a sprained MCL. Thankfully, it was nothing worse, and he too is going to battle out there next week, or I should say this week, and is going to play in this game. Now, both of these injuries do not bode well for quarterbacks trying to throw the ball. And so I think ultimately this game is going to come down to running the ball and to defense. Ultimately, I just like what I've seen from Detroit with DeAndre Swift. They still have Adrian Peterson. If Christian McCaffrey was actually playing this game for the Carolina Panthers, that may be a different decision. But with the way it is, I'm going to pick the Detroit Lions to win this game and beat the Carolina Panthers. The next matchup is a rematch from last year's AFC divisional game where the Tennessee Titans take on the Baltimore Ravens. Last season in the playoffs, the Tennessee Titans absolutely upset the Baltimore Ravens and probably shocked most of the world when they beat the Baltimore Ravens in the playoffs. I think that game really exposed some weaknesses of the Baltimore Ravens, and a lot of those weaknesses are coming out again this year. And so ultimately, I think so long as Derrick Henry still has a productive running game, I'm going to pick the Tennessee Titans to rebound from their loss last week and once again beat the Baltimore Ravens. The next matchup for our Sunday morning games sees the Dallas Cowboys traveling to Minnesota to take on the Vikings. Again, not much to say here. Dallas Cowboys are pretty much a joke this season. Their season is already over. I can't even tell you who they're going to throw out there in quarterback, whether it's Cooper Rush, Garrett Gilbert, so on and so forth. A bunch of names that you've probably never heard of. So, not much to say here. I'm going to pick the Minnesota Vikings to win this game, and they're going to get on a bit of a win streak. So, expect the Vikings to win here in this game. Our next matchup sees the New York Jets taking on the Los Angeles Chargers in Los Angeles, and this game is going to be my lock of the week. Again, it's never a bad idea to just choose the team that's playing the New York Jets as your lock of the week, and that's going to be no different here. I know the Chargers aren't a very good team record-wise, but Justin Herbert has been lighting the world on fire, and he's probably the front runner right now to be the Rookie of the Year. And I expect him to have a huge game against these New York Jets. So I'm picking the Los Angeles Chargers to win this game against the New York Jets, and that is my lock of the week. The next matchup, again another makeup from Week 6, is the Miami Dolphins traveling to Denver to take on the Broncos. Drew Lock is coming off his worst game of his entire career when he threw 4 picks against the Las Vegas Raiders, and they got blown out against the Raiders. The Miami Dolphins are coming off a good win against those Los Angeles Chargers last week. And again, they're riding, I believe it's like a 5 or 6 game win streak right now. And ultimately, I don't see that changing at all. I'm picking the Dolphins here to beat the Denver Broncos in Week 11 as the rematch from Week 6. Or the makeup from Week 6, I should say. So now this takes us into the Sunday Night Football game, where we have the Kansas City Chiefs traveling to Las Vegas to take on the Raiders. Now, last time that these two teams played, Las Vegas was able to they were able to squeak out a win against the Chiefs. I think they ended up winning that game like 40-32. And so it was still a very competitive, a very close game, even though a lot of people would say that the Las Vegas Raiders absolutely manhandled the Kansas City Chiefs last time. Well, this is going to be a revenge game for the Chiefs. I'm sure they're pissed off that was their only loss of the entire season, a game in which they probably shouldn't have lost anyways. So they're going to come out on fire. That Chiefs offense is absolutely clicking right now. I expect Mahomes and that Chiefs team to have a huge game against the Raiders. And, well, I'm picking the Chiefs to win this game against the Raiders in prime time. Now, listen, if the Raiders are able to win this game, watch out. They're going to be a scary team going into the playoffs. But first things first, you still have to beat the Chiefs again. I don't see it happening. I'm picking the Chiefs to win this game. And now for our last game of the week, our Monday Night Football matchup is the Los Angeles Rams traveling to Tampa to take on the Buccaneers. Again, Tom Brady and company really bounced back last week after that embarrassing loss against the Saints and put up huge numbers against the Carolina Panthers. The Los Angeles Rams got a statement win last week against the Seattle Seahawks as they moved into a 3-way tie for first place in the NFC West. Although the Rams won last week against the Seahawks, Jared Goff did not play a good game. They should have had a lot bigger of a win last week, especially considering Russ Wilson turned the ball over 3 times and for the first time all season did not throw a touchdown pass. With that being said, they still only won the game by 7 points. And so, although a win is a win in the NFL, it wasn't a very convincing or meaningful win for me personally. And I think that the way that the Buccaneers have been winning lately is a lot more convincing. So I'm going to pick the Buccaneers to win this game against the Los Angeles Rams. So now just running through all of these matchups again from Week 11. Starting off on Thursday Night Football, I have the Seattle Seahawks beating the Arizona Cardinals, the Washington Football Team beating the Cincinnati Bengals, the Atlanta Falcons beating the New Orleans Saints and being my upset of the week, the Steelers beating the Jaguars, the Green Bay Packers beating the Indianapolis Colts, the Patriots beating the Texans, the Cleveland Browns beating the Philadelphia Eagles, the Lions beating the Panthers, the Titans beating the Ravens, the Chargers, as my lock of the week, beating the New York Jets, the Miami Dolphins beating the Denver Broncos, Minnesota taking care of business against the Cowboys, the Chiefs winning big on Sunday Night Football against the Raiders, and lastly, the Buccaneers beating the Rams. So let me know what you guys think about this week's picks. Let me know what your guys' picks are. This has been another episode of the Randall Handles Football Podcast. Thank you, everybody, for listening.
I don't care who you play, whether it's a high school team, a junior college team, a college team, much less an NFL team. When you turn the ball over 5 times, 4 interceptions, 1 for a touchdown, 3 others in field position to set up touchdowns, you ain't gonna beat anybody I just talked about. Anybody. All right? And that was a disgraceful performance, in my opinion. We threw that game. We gave it away by doing that. We gave them the friggin' game. In my opinion, that sucked. What's that? Playoffs? Don't talk about playoffs. You kidding me? Playoffs? I just hope we can win a game.